She said it's just a fling, but I saw her text planning a future with him over dinner. I don't know why I kept trying to convince myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe I was scared. Scared to admit that everything I thought I knew about her, the woman I loved, the woman I thought was my partner, was just a lie. It happened 2 weeks ago. We'd been dating for a little over a year. I'd met her at a mutual friend's party, and from the very first conversation, I was hooked. She was witty, charming, and so beautiful it was almost unreal. We'd clicked instantly. She was everything I wanted, everything I thought I'd never find. And honestly, I was happier than I'd ever been. She made me feel seen, loved, like I was the center of her universe. That's why, when she told me she needed some space, I tried to be understanding. We hadn't been fighting, nothing had seemed off. But she insisted. Just a few days apart, she said. I agreed, reluctantly. At the time, I thought maybe it was just one of those moments. Like when you get overwhelmed and need time to breathe. I convinced myself that everything would be fine. So, I went on with my week, distracted by work and friends, telling myself that once she had her space, things would go back to normal. But then I saw the text. It was late one evening, just after dinner. She'd been texting on her phone, as she usually did while we watched a show together. I never thought twice about it, until I noticed her phone screen light up with a name I didn't recognize. The notification came through while she was in the bathroom, and for some stupid reason, I glanced at it. It wasn't a text or an email. No, it was a string of messages, mostly about something I wasn't a part of. You've been on my mind all day. Can't wait for next weekend. I was thinking about how we could spend more time together. Maybe we can look at apartments soon? I'm getting serious about this. And then, I just want you to know, I see a future with you. I froze. I don't know what happened next. My heart pounded in my chest, and my stomach felt like it had dropped into my shoes. This was her phone, the same one I'd held in my hands without a second thought. She'd always told me she was going to bed, always told me she was catching up with some friends. She'd never once said anything about planning a future with someone else. I couldn't move. I didn't want to believe what I was reading, but I couldn't unsee it. The context, the warmth in the messages, it wasn't just a casual fling. It wasn't some random hookup. This was something real. This was something she was hiding. And from the looks of it, this wasn't just a one-time thing. They were planning for the future, making real plans for their lives. I heard the bathroom door creak open, and the sound yanked me back into reality. I quickly turned my attention away from the screen, pretending nothing had happened. She came out, smiling like she always did, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and sat back down next to me on the couch. She didn't seem suspicious. She didn't seem like she had any idea that everything had just shifted for me in the most devastating way possible. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. I felt like I was drowning. For the next hour, we continued watching our show in silence. I was barely processing the dialogue on screen, my mind too caught up in the messages I'd seen. I could barely look at her without feeling like a stranger was sitting next to me. She was still the same, laughing, making small talk, completely unaware that I now knew everything. Finally, when the credits rolled, I turned to her. My throat was dry, and I felt like I might throw up. "Who's he?" I managed to ask, the words coming out shaky. She froze. Her expression flickered for just a second. Then she recovered, putting on a calm smile. "What are you talking about?" "The texts," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. "I saw them. You're planning a future with him." Her face paled, and in that moment I knew. I knew that she had been lying to me. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't shocked, I was. "It's not what you think," she said quickly, her voice a little too high-pitched. "It's just a fling. I told you I was trying to figure things out. I needed space, remember?" A cold wave of anger washed over me. Space? A fling? She had been telling me it was a break, a few days for herself. And here she was, texting some other guy, talking about a future together. "You're lying," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "That's not a fling. That's a future. You've been planning your life with him. And you couldn't even tell me? You couldn't even have the decency to be honest with me." My words were coming faster now, a mixture of hurt and disbelief. She stood up, shaking her head. "Jake, you don't understand. It's complicated. You don't. Don't lie to me. I snapped, standing up too. I saw it. I saw everything. She stepped back, her eyes darting away, avoiding my gaze. The anger inside me was building, but there was something else too, a deep, suffocating sadness. I had trusted her. I had loved her, and now it was clear that none of it had meant anything. It's not like that, she repeated, though her voice was less convincing now. It was just, I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you the truth. The truth. I laughed bitterly, wiping my face with my hand. The truth is that you've been with someone else this whole time, and I didn't even know. I've been here, thinking we were building something, and you were planning a future with him. She didn't speak for a long time. I think she realized there was nothing left to say, nothing that would make it better. Finally, she let out a sigh and looked me in the eye. I'm sorry, Jake. I really am. But I didn't know how to let go. You were always there for me, and I didn't want to hurt you. But I'm not in love with you anymore. And just like that, it was over. Everything I thought I knew, everything I thought I had with her, just crumbled in front of me. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the fact that she had never even had the courage to tell me the truth. She had hidden it from me, lied to me, and pretended like nothing was wrong while planning a future with someone else. She didn't fight for us. She didn't even seem to care that she was breaking me. And I could tell, in that moment, that I was no longer the person she loved. She turned away from me then, grabbing her bag, looking like she was going to leave. There was no fight, no tears. Just the weight of her indifference, the absence of the love she once claimed to have for me. As she reached the door, she paused. Jake, she said, her voice a little softer now, like she was trying to sound sincere. But the words felt hollow. I hope you understand. And then she left. I stood there in the silence, feeling my heart shatter. The woman I thought I knew, the one I'd trusted with everything, was gone. All that was left was the sound of my own breath, shaky and unsure, as the reality of it all sank in. She was planning a future with someone else, and I was left picking up the pieces of what was supposed to be our life together. Part 2. I barely slept that night. I didn't know what to do, how to process what had just happened. The hours dragged on in a haze, and I found myself staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over again. Her smile, her words, the way she'd looked at me when she said she wasn't in love anymore. I kept thinking about the things I hadn't seen, the signs I had missed. It was like I was suddenly looking at the world with new eyes, seeing all the cracks in the facade that I hadn't noticed before. The next day, I didn't go to work. I couldn't. I called in sick, but it wasn't just the physical exhaustion. It was this deep emotional fatigue, like my soul had been drained. I didn't know how to face the world, how to be around people when everything felt broken inside me. I spent most of the day pacing around my apartment, sitting in the silence, staring at her empty side of the bed. I was angry, of course, but more than that, I was confused. How had this happened? We've been so close, or at least I thought we had been. She told me we were building a life together. She told me I was everything to her. But now, I realized it had all been a lie. A convenient mask to hide what was really going on behind my back. I started digging through our messages, hoping to find something, anything that could explain it. I went through texts from the past month, searching for any clues I might have missed. I found messages where she'd made plans to see him. Those texts about their future, about looking at apartments. I saw how casually she had referred to their dates, and how she'd made it sound like a side thing, like it didn't matter. I felt sick to my stomach. She had been playing me for a fool the entire time. I tried calling her, of course. I wanted answers, not just the vague excuses she'd given me the night before. But every time I dialed her number, I would stop myself before it rang more than once. What was the point? I'd already seen everything I needed to know. She had left me, not physically, but emotionally. She'd moved on, while I was left trying to stitch together the pieces of a shattered relationship. I didn't want to go to her. I didn't want to beg for an explanation or plead with her to come back. I wasn't that person, but I still needed to understand. I needed to know why. Why couldn't she just be honest with me? Why couldn't she tell me she was feeling something for someone else before it went this far? The worst part of all this was that, for a moment, I thought I could have handled it differently. If she had been honest with me from the start, if she had said, "I'm not sure I'm in love with you anymore," maybe we could have talked about it. Maybe we could have figured it out. But instead, she had lied. She had hidden her feelings, made me feel like we were a couple while she was planning a future with someone else behind my back. I ended up going out that afternoon just to get some air. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to be outside of the apartment to get away from the weight of everything that had happened. I walked for hours, letting my mind wander, but every step felt heavier than the last. Every person I passed made me think of her. I couldn't escape it. Later that night, I found myself in a bar, nursing a beer and trying to shake off the weight of my thoughts. It wasn't a solution, but it was something to do. I didn't want to be alone, not yet. Not with the thoughts swirling in my head, the things I still couldn't bring myself to say out loud. I watched people talk and laugh around me, their lives seeming so normal and unaffected by what had just happened. And for the first time, I felt completely out of place, like I was living in a world that wasn't mine anymore. I was halfway through my drink when my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. "Can we talk?" I froze. My fingers hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to demand answers, to make her tell me what was really going on. But another part of me knew that I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hear more lies, to hear her try to justify her actions. I stared at the message for a while, the words burning into my mind. She wanted to talk? She had shattered my world, and now she was asking for a conversation? What did she expect to gain from that? What could she possibly say that would make this better? I knew I had to reply. It was the only way I could get the closure I needed. But part of me, the part that still cared about her, was terrified. Terrified of what she might say. Terrified that she would somehow try to play it off as nothing, that she would make me feel like I was the crazy one for questioning her. Finally, I typed back, "Why? What's left to talk about?" It felt like the right response. I didn't want to beg, didn't want to make it seem like I was still holding on to something. I had to hold my ground, even if my heart was breaking. Her reply came almost instantly. "I never meant for it to happen. I've been confused. I thought I was doing the right thing by keeping you in the dark. I never wanted to hurt you. Please just give me a chance to explain." Explain? It felt like a slap in the face. She was trying to make it sound like she had been the one to suffer, like she had been so torn up about what was going on. Meanwhile, I had been left out of the loop, kept in the dark while she carried on with someone else. I put my phone down on the bar, taking a deep breath and trying to collect myself. I wasn't sure I could hear her out without losing my cool. I wasn't sure I could keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I didn't reply. I didn't know if I ever would. The truth was, I didn't need her explanation. I had already seen it all. The lies, the betrayal, the secrets. I had seen everything I needed to know in the messages on her phone and in the silence that followed her departure. She had made her choice, and now so had I. The next few weeks passed in a fog. I moved out of the apartment, trying to find some semblance of normality. I focused on work, went to the gym, and spent time with friends. But it wasn't the same. There was an empty space inside me where she had once been, and no amount of distractions could fill it. I started to rebuild. Slowly, painfully. I knew I'd never forget the woman I thought I knew, but I also knew that I deserved better. I deserved someone who would never keep secrets from me, someone who would never lie about their feelings. The woman I loved was gone, and it was time for me to let her go too.